Let's get started for coffee and questions on this beautiful Friday, the 8th of May. So we head into Mother's Day. So I've got a couple of real questions and I wrote them down this time so I won't forget. So we'll get stuck into it and hopefully my coffee kicks in halfway through so that I make a bit more sense. And I give you an educated answer that makes sense. So a couple of questions I'll run through quickly. Well, one, Benny wants to know if I deliver, if I deliver my cooking, and the answer has always been you guys can't afford me. It's a question I've been asked a lot, but what I'm thinking of doing actually on that is running like some online cooking classes. If anybody is interested in that, I ran one the other day for Queensland Health's Finance Department and it was so much fun and it worked really well. And I think other than not being able to get the smell through the screen and that kind of interactive piece, it was actually really fun and really positive, and it's a good way to do get a nutrition message out at the moment when we're all stuck in isolation and we can't do that sort of thing. But it also, I guess, helps to do cooking for anyone in the world. You know, you don't have to be at a certain location to be able to do it. So if anybody is interested, let me know, because I'm not going to do it unless people would actually be keen to do it. But I think it could be a really good way to do some cooking with a dietitian, like learn how to cook something, but also get some nutrition education as you go through as well. Like, I guess that's the difference between doing a cooking class with a chef, they just kind of teach you how to kind of cook it. Whereas doing it with a dietitian, you get some good nutrition education as you go through as well. So why we're eating these sorts of things, how to include more of those things in your diet and why you need to do that, etc., etc. So if anybody is keen, let me know. If there's a big response of yes, then I'll look at doing it. And if there's like, no, that sounds pretty crap, Tara, then I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to waste my time. So I don't deliver food, Benny, I'm sorry. But you could potentially cook meals with me in the comfort of your own home, if that's something that people are keen for. And the other question that came from Ben was, what are my top 5 tips for weight loss? And I'm actually not going to answer that at this point because I don't think we should be focusing on weight loss in the current climate. Putting yourself into a calorie restriction actually dampens your immune response. And so I'm not going to give you my tips for weight loss right now. I'm going to give them to you when this is all over and we're getting back into the swing of things. So I know that's a bit of a cop-out, sorry, Benny, but I think there's a few things that we need to kind of focus on at the moment, and weight loss is not one of them. So a couple of things that you could focus on if you're looking for some sort of consistency or something to keep you on track is making sure you're getting your 2 serves of fruit and 5 serves of veggies every day. That should be just a no-brainer. One, it helps to give you a wide variety of vitamins and minerals and nutrients, which is what we need for our immune system at the moment and our overall health, like now and forever. We need to make sure we're getting enough fiber because that keeps our gut microbes happy, and we know that 70% of our immune cells reside within the gut. It's one of the first line defenses, our gut. So making sure that all those gut microbes, we've got really good diversity, so that they can all take on different roles and make sure they fend off the bad guys as best as they can. So getting 2 serves of fruit and 5 serves of veggies will help with getting that fiber as well. But yeah, making sure you're getting your 30 grams of fiber a day, and with fiber, more is better. So if you're at 30 grams a day easy, then work on increasing it up to sort of like 50 grams a day. A lot of the research around fiber has been done with 50 grams a day. And yeah, more fiber is associated with better health outcomes. So definitely increase that beyond whatever you're doing now. Like if you're not at 30, try and get to 30. And if you're at 30, then keep going. So yeah, 2 fruit, 5 veggies, fiber. I'm just pulling these out of my head, Benny. In terms of what you should be focusing on now. Number 3 would definitely be trying to not go too crazy with alcohol. 1, it's not good for our overall health, and 2, it's also not great for our immune system. And a lot of that detail I go through in the Stay Healthy During Isolation course. So if you want some more information on alcohol, fiber, 2 fruit, 5 veggies, then it's all within that course. So they would be 3 things that I would focus on, as well as trying to still do some regular exercise. a lot of people have kind of lost their mojo and lost their rhythm with exercise at the moment. And we know that like aerobic moderate intensity exercise is great for our immune system. So if you've lost your mojo, then you need to try and get it back, and try and include some regular exercise in most days, rather than sort of sitting on the couch finishing Netflix. That's not what we want to be doing at the moment. We want to be out there moving, getting some fresh air, because every time you exercise, you send your immune cells out. Like your whole immune system goes, all right, let's go and see what we can find. So if you've gone from exercising regularly to not, then that's not happening as frequently. So you're not kind of looking for the bad guys every time you go and exercise. So definitely try and put that into your days again. In the Stay Healthy During Isolation course, I go through exercise and the type that you should be doing now, and also exactly how to support it with nutrition, because not getting the right amount of nutrition during, before, after training or higher intensity sessions at the moment is actually bad for your immune system. So we talk about that in the course as well. Catherine said, I've consistently trained for 3 weeks. It's progress. Well done, Catherine. Good job. I think everyone had a bit of a blip at the start, and we're kind of starting to get back in now. Also because there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel here in Australia. So potentially events may still happen at the end of the year. Maybe not. We'll see. Hello, all these people on Facebook. Shay and Bonnie, good morning. Have you guys got a coffee? So Benny, they're the things that I would focus on now. 2 fruit, 5 veggies, fiber, not drinking too much, and regular exercise. And then we can talk, I'll talk you through my 5 tips later, down the track, when it's a bit more appropriate to do that sort of thing. All right, what did I miss in here? So Catherine said, I need to learn how to cook salmon, never done it before, and tackling your recipes next week. Ah, cool. Salmon's easy, but yes, it is something that needs a couple of tips, I would think. So maybe I'll write that on my list, how to cook salmon properly. The other things that are on my list are like how to poach an egg. A lot of people don't know how to actually poach an egg, like just with water, rather than using like a poaching machine. And what was the other one? How to cook rice via the absorption method is another one that people have no idea how to do. So give me a holler if you have no idea how to do those things as well, because yeah, they're super easy to teach you. All right, so that was those two questions from Benny. Do I deliver? No, but we could do some cooking together, and they're my tips for sort of looking after yourself right now, rather than trying to focus on putting yourself into calorie restriction, because I just don't think that's helpful when we need to not be killing our immune system. So Catherine said, I learned last week how to poach an egg. Game changer. There you go. Yep, it's super easy, but yeah, just needs a couple of pointers and a bit of practice. All right, now let's get into some meaty questions. Hopefully my coffee's kicked in enough for you guys. That makes some sense. So Liam, who's online, wants to know, God knows what you're reading at the moment, Liam, but his question was around lactic acid, and he has noticed that some foods contain lactic acid and wants to know if eating them before exercise increases your production of lactic acid. So that's a pretty sort of deep science question. Hopefully I can do it a little bit of justice, or at least give you some surface level information that answers it enough, because it's definitely not my area of expertise. But I guess I know a bit about lactic acid and how it works. So I'll try and talk you through some of those foundations, and then hopefully that gives you enough information to answer whatever crazy question or thing you're reading at the moment, Liam. So, so lactic acid obviously is a byproduct of high intensity exercise. When we don't have oxygen available, we burn carbohydrate. One of the byproducts of that is lactic acid, and that's kind of what gives you that pain, sore, like feeling in your muscles, like in your legs is often where you might get it on the bike, like in your quads, excuse me, or you can kind of also get it built up in your stomach as well when you're exercising it, and that's just, yeah, byproduct of exercise that's higher intensity. So it's not a bad thing, because when we train, what we do is we actually try and get more efficient at then taking that lactic acid that we produce and recycling it without oxygen available and reusing it. We break it down again and reuse it as a fuel source. So when you do sort of interval type training, like say if you did some track sprints, and then you do a sprint and then you have a recovery lap and then you do another lap of sprint, that's teaching your body to recycle lactic acid as a fuel source. And you get better at that over time. So a lot of athletes do those types of sessions, and that's one of the reasons why we do it. Good morning, all these people on Insta. You know what? I haven't seen many dietitians jump on this morning. I must have scared them all off. All right. So yes, it's a byproduct of exercise. It is also added to food, and that's because it helps to stabilize the pH. So it actually extends shelf life of food. And it's not a bad thing that it's added to food, because it's also a natural byproduct of fermentation. So when you ferment things like yogurt or kimchi, or those sorts of foods like pickles, lactic acid is actually produced as part of that fermentation product. It's a byproduct of that as well. So it's not a bad thing. It helps to prolong shelf life and keep food fresher for longer, because it helps to control that pH. Now, so because it is in food and it's a food additive, that means it's been tested and it's regulated and it's controlled. The other thing is that our body's pH is kept within a really tight bandwidth. So it's 7.35 to 7.45. It doesn't really shift beyond that. And I actually posted a really good article from Thinking Nutrition about that. I think it was Thinking Nutrition. Maybe it was My Sports Science, one of them, around like the alkalizing diet and stuff, and why that's just a load of bullshit. Because our body is so tightly controlled, and any pH shift outside of that tight range is like really not good. And you can shift in both directions, and it just means that something's wrong. So we don't need to alkalize our body. We don't need to change our diet to do that. Our body does it for us. And if you are, so this is where it gets too deep for me. It's not something I work in regularly to know the intricate details, but if you eat food, it goes into the stomach, right? And the pH of the stomach is really, really low. It's 1.5 to 2. So anything you throw in there gets broken down by all that acid in your tummy. So it doesn't matter what pH food you throw in there, it's all going into the one environment. It gets broken down anyway. So it doesn't matter if you eat lactic acid, it's not going to make you increase your production of lactic acid, because it just gets broken down. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Definitely not my area of expertise to know all the details of the science, but like lactic acid is one, a byproduct of exercise and fermentation, and it's a food additive. Eating it's not going to change your lactic acid production. It's not going, like eating it doesn't mean you have more lactic acid in your system. You're just going to break it down anyway into its elements. So eating it before exercise isn't going to make you produce more lactic acid. Does that make sense, Liam? You're going to produce more lactic acid the harder you work. And that's not affected by what you've eaten. It's more affected by how fit you are and what type of session you're doing, how much carbohydrate you've got on board potentially is another one, because you're burning that carbohydrate fuel, and the byproduct of that is lactic acid. So yeah, I hope I've given that answer a little bit of justice. I feel like Dr. Karl trying to dissect answers and make sense of things, but definitely not anywhere near as intelligent as Dr. Karl. All right, and then Jojo, who's not actually here online, I haven't seen her jump on, asked last week about nitrate. And I ran out of time to re-look up nitrate, because I'm sure there's more research around it compared to when I looked at it a couple of years ago. All right, Liam said that answered all I need, really. Thank you. Phew. Thanks, Liam. Catherine said this is like physiology all over again. Yeah, right? It's too early in the morning for me to go too deep science, because I haven't had my coffee yet. It's only just sinking in now. But I do love like biology and chemistry and physiology and stuff. So I'm happy to take a deep dive in there for as limited as my knowledge is these days, because it's been a long time since I've done those things at uni. It's been a long time. How many years? 2005, so 15 years ago. I think I probably still do have my textbooks, so I should bust them out, but they're probably out of date by now. All right, so yeah, nitrate was the other question I had last week that I promised Joe I would answer this week. Hello, good morning, Jose from Peru. Peruvian. Coffee. And Catherine said, I'm just making coffee and physiology, not my fave. Give me anatomy any day. Yeah, love anatomy as well. I think like dietetics is definitely food, but it's kind of like medicine for food. So we do a lot of anatomy, physiology, chemistry, which I really love all those subjects. So it was like the perfect degree for me. Good morning, Hamo. Welcome to Coffee and Questions. Okay, nitrate. So I'll try and find some space next week to look up and to see where the nitrate story is. So it kind of came about from beetroot juice, and it was a secret source of the London 2012 Olympics. Everyone was using it. And it wasn't until kind of afterwards that all the countries were like, yep, this is like, they released their studies then, they came out and were published. They're all kind of using it and testing it for those games. And so since about sort of 2012, that literature has kind of escalated. So the premise of beetroot juice is that it is high source of nitrate. And nitrate, when you consume it, it gets broken down into nitrite and then nitric oxide. And so, good morning, Hamo. Have you used your coffee machine yet, Hamo? You don't drink coffee. Are you drinking tea? So we know that nitric oxide, when it gets converted to that when there's not enough oxygen available, so in low oxygen availability, and that's usually when we're exercising, when there's not a lot of oxygen kicking around, so high intensity exercise when we're struggling to breathe. And what they've discovered is that it actually helps to do a whole heap of things with the oxygen pathway. So it's going to lower the oxygen cost of exercise, which means that you can work harder with less oxygen available, or you're using less oxygen, which is pretty cool. So it kind of increases performance that way. It's also going to decrease your resting blood pressure because we're better at sort of carrying oxygen around. And so they've done a lot of time trial performance tests with it, and it lowers that time of the time trial. So you do the time trial faster, which means it's better. Chris said, not me, but Robin heaps. That's good. It's worth the investment. I gave the Hamos our coffee machine recommendation, and they went and bought it and have been using it regularly, I hear. Okay, so, all right, coffee finished. No longer distracted by my coffee. Okay, so yes, it improves performance for a number of reasons. And years ago when I looked at it, they were looking at the types of exercise that it would be beneficial for. So it's obviously stuff that is more high oxygen using, so higher intensity stuff. So a lot of team sports, and then endurance stuff like triathlon as well. It would also be beneficial at altitude when there's low oxygen available. So a lot of studies have been done in the low altitude environment. So a couple of things that they've found with nitrate or beetroot juice is that it works better if you're an untrained athlete. So untrained doesn't mean that you don't do any training. Untrained just means that you are not an elite athlete. Okay, so you are just a regular punter. You might be a really good age group athlete, but you're not an elite athlete. Like, you don't do it for your job, because the difference between somebody that is sort of less fit or newer, they seem to have more benefit than people that are elite athletes. There's definitely also responders and non-responders. So some people have shown benefit, and then other people, they haven't shown any benefit at all. So it's something you can play with. The only thing that I would say, and this was for Joe's partner, The only thing that I would say with trying it is that you should really have the foundations of sports nutrition in place before you start dabbling in supplements like that, because the chance of it helping performance are really slim if you haven't just nailed some of the foundations of like pre-fueling, what you're doing during, and recovery nutrition, and then your overall diet as well. So I think of supplements as like the sprinkles on the icing on the cake. You need to have that cake layer nailed first. That's the foundations of your nutrition. And then you put the icing on the top, and that might be some sports nutrition principles. And then you put the supplements, like the sprinkles on the icing on the cake. That's the last layer. So if you try and just put sprinkles on a plate, you've missed the foundations of the cake and you've missed the foundations of the icing. So you really need to build a cake upwards rather than go from the top down. Okay, so I think that's one key sort of message with supplements. So it's definitely worth playing with. Like, there's no sort of harm to having it. The only sort of side effects of having beetroot juice are probably pink wee. And the other thing is some people had some gut upset, and that is individual as well. Some people had gut upset, some people didn't. So it's worth sort of trying in a training scenario rather than doing it before racing. And you can't just kind of drink just like normal beetroot juice. You want to get a concentrated shot, like those Beat It shots, if they still exist. Catherine skipped from Insta to Facebook. Maybe Insta's not working. Now, there is a certain protocol for how much you need. So I've written a blog on nitrate. I can link it in here for you to read afterwards, and it's got that protocol in there. But again, I wrote that blog a couple of years ago, so I would have to double check to see that's the latest. I probably should add that to my long to-do list just to check that that's up to date. And they have done, I know they have done more research around the types of exercise and training that it's beneficial for. They've kind of nutted that out a little bit further compared to a few years ago when I wrote that. So I can go and have a look and update that blog at some point. That I can add that to my to-do list. So yeah, that's my answer for nitrate, Jojo. Even though you're not here, hopefully you can watch the replay and get that. But in terms of your partner, make sure he's got the foundations sorted first before even looking at doing sprinkles like that, because it's not going to have much of an effect if you haven't done some basic foundations of sports nutrition first. All right, whew, deep. So we've gone deep into lactic acid and we've gone sort of surface deep into nitrate. Have we got any other questions? Maybe some easy ones for me. You're killing me, guys, on a Friday. So a couple of things if you're jumping online now is, one, take a photo of your coffee drinking with me on the screen and post it. I'd love to see all these people drinking coffee. Two, let me know if you want to do some online cooking classes. I'm definitely happy to go ahead and try it and get a better, I've got my tripod coming, so I'll get a better camera set up to be able to do that if people are actually interested in doing it. And I think that's it. They're the two things that we've talked about so far. Yeah, I think they're the two things that we've talked about so far. So give me a holler if you've got any questions. We're only half an hour in. We usually go for an extra half an hour, so let me know. Catherine actually asked me during the week about a bar, the new YoPro bar, and I haven't tried it. I looked for it in our shops, but we don't have it, or we didn't have it, so I haven't been able to test it out. But I can try and see if I can source it for you, Catherine, and do a bit of a product review for that. If people are interested in product reviews, I'm happy to do them as well. I have done a couple so far. I'm happy to do more if there's any particular products that you want to know about. I can put those in the Dietitian Approved Crew Facebook group. I'm not going to post them sort of on Facebook. I'll put them in that Facebook group. So if you're not a member of the Dietitian Approved Crew Facebook group, you need to jump in and get on that. So Catherine's looking for winter recipes. Yep, I'm working on that one as we speak. I'm expanding the ever-expanding recipe database with a whole heap of winter warmers at the moment. So our slow cooker's getting a workout. to try and increase the slow cooker component of that database. So next week on the menu is some slow cooker lamb shanks and like a lemon chicken, which should be, well, hopefully it works. I'm just completely winging it. You can't go too wrong with the slow cooker as long as you don't put too much liquid in there, because it doesn't kind of evaporate off like it would on the stove. So they're the two recipes that I'm testing out next week. And I'll be adding those to the recipe database over the next sort of month or so. So if you've got any requests for recipes, now is the time to submit them, because I'm in peak sort of testing mode. Catherine said, oh, bummer, yeah, would like a review on that. They're pretty expensive when I can just make protein balls, but interested in the benefits. How much do they cost, Catherine? So this is those new YoPro protein bars. Might be a quick and easy snack on the go when I'm unorganized. Yep. And Chris Hamilton said, okay, this is not deep. I was told once you can eat basically anything you want for 30 minutes after a hard workout. Is it true, and why? Oh, thanks, Hamo. And the answer is no, you can't eat whatever you want after a hard workout. There's a few key things that you want to be ticking off after exercise. They're called the 4 R's of recovery. So we've got repairing our muscle fibers, and also like our hormones and enzymes, and making sure you get enough protein in. We want to refuel our muscle glycogen tank by putting some carbohydrate back in. Want to revitalize, making sure we've got plenty of vitamins and minerals, so lots of color with things like fruits and salad and veggies. And the 4th R is making sure we are rehydrating with just water. So as long as what you're eating after a hard workout ticks off all of those 4 boxes, then that's a good thing. Now, you can't eat whatever you want. Well, you can. Depends what your goals are, Hamo, but if your goals are maintaining your super lean, mean fighting machine physique, then it's not a free-for-all after exercise. Your body is certainly, in that window of opportunity after exercise, your body is certainly just searching for all those nutrients to recover and repair. And we know that our recovery and repair enzymes peak at about 60 minutes after exercise. So we want to be eating sort of 30, 45 minutes after exercise to meet that peak. Otherwise, we're missing that opportunity to have all those building blocks there ready for repair. So as long as you're ticking off those 4 boxes, Hamo, then that's okay. But it's certainly not a free-for-all if you've got sort of goals around performance or body composition. Yeah, hope that answers that one. All right, what have we got going on Facebook? Honey mustard chicken, one of my faves, and pea and ham soup. Okay, cool. I'll add those to the list. Andre said lemon chicken, yum. And Catherine said those bars were nearly $4. So that is quite expensive, really, isn't it? Because something like the bar counter bars sort of $2. So yeah, it is, I would say it's a convenience item. It is a 20-gram protein hit. So I'd probably look at using something like that after a race, like chucking that in your race bag as your recovery protein after a race, when you just don't have the ability to get to those 4 hours of recovery easily. And use it there in that sort of scenario, rather than using it as a snack if you don't want to be eating a $4 bar every day. Liam asked what electrolytes are in coconut water and would it be good for using during training. So we talked about coconut water last week, I think. So coconut water is quite high in potassium, and I'm sure there's some sodium in there as well. I don't know off the top of my head what other electrolytes are in there, but it's certainly a high potassium source. And coconut water is similar sort of carbohydrate profile to sports drink. So you could certainly use it as a sports drink if you wanted to. A lot of them have around sort of 6% carbohydrate, 4 to 6, so similar carbohydrate profile to a sports drink. You could use it in training. Just be careful with your gut. Some people don't tolerate coconut water. So if you have a sensitive gut, then it may not be so great during training. And the other thing is I would be using in training, maybe not right now because there's sort of no races on the cards for ages, but usually in training, you want to be using what you're racing with. So I wouldn't use something different in training and then race on a different product. Make sure that whatever you're doing in your training is what you're going to race with. And I probably wouldn't recommend racing with coconut water just because of the gut upset risk. And I don't know how high it is in electrolytes compared to sports drinks. I've never done that comparison, Liam, but we could do it. Hamo said no need to big boy shame. Hamo, you're hilarious. Okay, and then Catherine said, good for post-race when you can't stomach literally anything, speaking from experience. Yeah, that's a kind of perfect time. So usually, Catherine's a triathlete. So usually at that recovery area, there's no protein available. So there's plenty of carbs. You've got sports drinks, you've got fruit, you've got water, but there's generally no protein available. So having something like that in your race bag would be a good option to get enough protein in that recovery window, in that window of opportunity that we just talked about, to make sure that you're doing a good job of your recovery straight away, particularly after racing, because you do put yourself into such a hole usually, and your immune system is then compromised for 1 to 3 days afterwards. So it's a really key time to do a good job of your recovery nutrition to make sure you don't get sick after. And yeah, so that could be an easy way to get it in, and then follow that up with a proper meal sort of an hour or two later when you can get to it, so rather than just not eating for multiple hours and then like getting stuck into the wines. Like that's the worst thing you could do for your recovery. Good morning, Feed Your Future. All right, there's a bunch of people on Insta. Okay, I just turned you around again. Any other questions? We're starting to get, I feel like the questions in the beginning of Coffee and Questions were like super easy for me to answer. Now we're getting into like deep technical stuff, which is hurting my brain. That's okay, I love it. I love it. And I'm more than happy to say that I have no idea of the answer to. If anybody asks me anything particularly curly, and I don't know how to answer, I'm not going to pretend I know the answer. Like a couple of weeks ago, somebody asked me about SIBO, small intestinal bowel overgrowth, which I just have no idea about. So any curly questions, I'm happy to pass on to the experts in that area. All right, if there's no more questions, we might wrap this up. I hope everyone's doing okay and you have a really nice Mother's Day weekend. Please let me know if you want to do some online cooking classes. And I'll link the blog for Nitrate in here so you can have a read of it for anybody that's interested. And the other thing is the Stay Healthy During Isolation course is still up and live and running. So if anybody wants to get amongst it, I can link that in here as well. So it covers off a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, actually. And then what are the key things that I think you should know about and should be sort of implementing and doing right now, rather than trying to focus on calorie restriction and losing weight. There's a few sort of foundations or fundamentals that I really think are important to keep you well at the moment, keep your immune system as robust as ever. And then we can talk about getting off the extra ISO kilos afterwards when we're back to normal living. Carmel said, I like Smart Protein bars. Maybe you could check these out too. So yes, Smart Protein. What brand? Is it Smart Protein, the brand? Carmel? Smart Protein. I'll have a look. I'll Google. So YoPro and Smart Protein. We'll have a look. So I'll put, if I find both of those bars to be able to taste test them. So I'm just writing down over here. That's why I'm looking over here. If I find them both to taste test them, then I'll pop those reviews on the Dietitian Approved Crew Facebook group. So make sure you jump over to that group if you want to know the answer. Catherine said, we all have more time to think of them now. Questions? Yeah. Okay, cool. No worries, Carmel. I'll have a look and see if I can find them. All right, team. Thank you for joining me for Coffee and Questions. I really appreciate everyone jumping online and taking their time out to have a bit of chat with me, keeping each other sane through this period. Carmel said, I like them because they have lots of non-chocolate flavors. Coming from a non-chocolate lover. There's lots and lots of bars and products on the market, and it's constantly evolving. Like the supplement industry is just huge. So me keeping up on top of all the products is just impossible too. So anything that you want to know about, send them through, and I'll see if I can find them to have a look at them and taste them, because I do that all the time personally. Like I love shopping, grocery shopping. And I spent ages looking through all the products and reading labels and stuff like that. So definitely happy to for you to send me some suggestions, and I'll see if I can find them. All right. Former chocoholic. So Carmel, do you not like chocolate, or are you just trying to not eat chocolate? I didn't know that. There you go. Good morning, Jenny Pine. We're just about to wind up, Jenny. 40 minutes. Maybe that's a new record. Maybe they're getting shorter and shorter, or I'm getting faster at answering curly questions. Former chocoholic. All right, guys, I hope you have a really nice weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all the mums out there, and I will see you next Friday for coffee and questions. See you next Friday.